Okay, good morning. How are you today? So my name is Hala Fadel. I'm a partner at Leap Ventures. And Leap Ventures is a late-stage venture capital fund focusing on Lebanon and the MENA region. And stay tuned because my partner, Henry Asaili, will be making an announcement right after this panel. So I'm very, very excited because we have a very interesting topic today, the new trends or the hot trends in mobile. So first of all, I was talking to my friend Simon Khalaf from Fleury. Simon is one of those successful Lebanese entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley. He founded Fleury, an app, the largest actually app analytics and advertising platform. And I was telling him about the subject of the panel, and he told me, Hala, we're in POMO. And I'm like, what is POMO? So POMO is post-mobile world. We're in a post-mobile world, and in fact, we've moved from a collaborative web trapped into the walls of a computer to a web that is omnipresent with more and more devices connected to the internet, like my phablet here, a phone and a tablet, or many more devices. And these machines connect seamlessly, one after the other, to the internet. And to a point where we can say that mobile is Web 3.0. It's the new web. And a complete stranger to the mobile world, Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook, who, by the way, yesterday just announced payment on Messenger, I was listening to the quarterly results of Facebook, and he said that 1 billion people are using Facebook every day, and on mobile, 1 minute out of 5 is spent on Facebook. As you may know, Facebook also has WhatsApp and Oculus, the virtual reality company. And he also said, I want to focus on the relevance of content such as newsfeed. Apps have beaten TV in time spent with teens and young adults, and young adults are simply no longer watching television. So what are the cultural implications of losing the most impactful media channel, which was TV in my generation? And for that first question, I will move on to Kelly Hoey, who's a strategist and angel investor and a board member of JuiceLabs in Cairo, and the founder of Women Innovate Mobile. So Kelly, what are your impressions about media? Where is media going in Web 3.0?
Well, given that I live in New York City and the importance of the media industry, I've got a great interest because I don't think legacy media is going away. I think media companies, whether it's legacy media or new media, is all trying to figure out. And I think there's been a lot of attention focused on the platform, i.e. we're moving off of the television screen and onto the mobile screen, where really what we need to be looking at is much more nuanced and sophisticated. So I'm glad you brought up, Facebook, because Facebook, followed by YouTube and Instagram, is where a lot of people are getting their news first. They're getting it in a social context, but that's not where they're stopping. What's interesting too about Facebook is, in spite of its massive use, and it doesn't surprise me that payments are going to be on Facebook now, because the generation, the millennial, the generation born after 1980 that has been entirely online, they look at Facebook as a utility. It's I need to be here, not I want to be here. So it's going to be interesting going forward in terms of what is posted and what our use is of that. But that generation, their news consumption is much more nuanced. They are much more involved in the news. There was a massive and detailed study done of that generation in the United States. And so social contextualized it for them. It was actually surprising to the researchers. They thought that this generation was disinterested, but they're deeply engaged. They go deeply into different stories. So for people creating content, it's not just where they're finding it, it's how they're finding it, it's where they're going for secondary and deeper stories. So the importance of search is again important. And we know that search on mobile has been a friction point for a lot of people. But I'm interested because you see Reuters television has come out. It's interesting, it's subscription. You know, how and when are we going to pay for news? Interestingly, as we get older, we're more prepared to pay for it. So even within that millennial generation, the younger end of it thinks that news should be free. It's a right of citizenship. It's a civil, you know, thing you should be given, you know, like roads. You should get free news. Whereas the further end of millennials believes in paying for it. MSNBC has now come into a partnership to create 2 news shows daily on Facebook, which is interesting because this survey says that we want to consume news in a stream as part of our everyday, during day-to-day activities, yet they're now going to do 2 shows at a set time each day on Facebook. So this is an interesting experiment. It's not been done before. We'll see what happens. And then Troy Carter has come out with a new news site called Smashed. Troy, known for being Lady Gaga's former manager. She created a very interesting niche social network, Little Monsters, with Troy. So his knowledge of those niche communities and engaging them in content, because you could say, why do we need another tech, culture, hustle news site? But given his background, I'm intrigued to see what he's going to do. So I think news right now, like I said, there's legacy industries that are trying to figure out how they're going to make money, but there's also this new coming in that it's just an interesting space to watch.
Okay, so news on mobile, very much into now. You use the word hustling for to come out with a piece of news. How this is happening more and more. It's inherent to the mobile world you're in now. You don't look at history or what has happened in past news. You're looking at the now moment. So the relevance of the information is very, very important. So 1 minute out of 5 spent on Facebook, 2 minutes out of 5 on video games. And that brings me to Monty. Monty Munford, I was about to introduce you as the founder of Mob76, a content strategy and exit consultancy. And by the way, this is what ArabNet told me. Until I've researched you a bit on the internet, and had I just stopped to that sentence, I would have missed a 12-year career in parcel delivery. You were a parcel delivery guy for 12 years.
I was a motorcycle dispatch rider. It's very, very different.
Okay. And so you made it all the way to become one of the most impressive and most traveled tech journalists, writing for the Financial Times, The Guardian, The Telegraph, and The Economist. And in between, you've even played in 2 major motion pictures in Bollywood. Yeah. And you've also worked for many years for Player X. Well,
yes.
that's relevant to what we're going to be discussing. But I've also discovered that at Player X, you failed Angry Bird. And you were even called the Rovia killer, Rovia being the developer of Angry Bird.
That's true.
Okay.
That's all true.
So that makes you very relevant to my next question. Where is video games evolving? In the mobile world, they're even becoming chatting platforms.
Yeah. Well, you may have seen this week that Nintendo have finally decided to move into mobile games, probably 15 years later than we expected. I was pretty involved in the mobile games industry up until the end of the noughties. And we were an aggregation company, Player X, and there was a company in Finland called Rovio Mobile, and they failed. We failed all of their games because they were not very good. And unfortunately, we failed the 51st one, which we would have owned, and that was the Angry Birds. So I went to India for 2 years, became a Bollywood film star to make up for it. And I came back and I was writing, and I came back and I was invited to see Rovio in Helsinki. And they knew that I used to work for Player X, and we were the Rovio killer. And you may have to excuse my language here. But I walked into the office and everybody said, "Oh, hello everybody, it's Monty. Remember him from Player X?" And everybody stand up, and they all stood up and all together, and they all shouted out in one, "We are all fucking billionaires now," you know, which made me feel fantastic. But the point about the mobile games industry and maybe stories about Angry Birds, I still say to this day that Angry Birds was a lucky game, and no one really knew what they were doing at that time. You know, there was a lot of investment. The operators were charging, weren't marketing the games. The technology wasn't right. Porting the game across handsets wasn't right. The entertainment providers or the media companies were charging huge guarantees, and it took $400,000 or $500,000 to get a decent game into the market with no guarantee of success. And this has changed completely since the iPhone. And there are a lot of people that were involved in the industry at the time that have moved on or fractured or fragmented into different parts. There's a company called Seriously, based in Los Angeles and Finland, with ex-Rovio executives. 10 million downloads in the last 4 months for their game, Best Fiends. And you can see these things changing. And I've had meetings with Seriously, Disney, Electronic Arts, and all those games companies, and all saying that we are losing our audience because we don't have a form of engagement platform to engage and to interact and speak with that audience. If you look at Angry Birds, when I went there to see them, and they took the mickey out of me for failing their game, they did give me the first Angry Birds slingshot toy, which gave me a lot of credibility with my then 7-year-old son. And we probably made the worst ever video about Angry Birds that could ever be made. I didn't even know, it shows you how useless I was. I didn't even know that you're supposed to kill the pigs, not free them. And put this video up on the platform, and I got a message from Google within 24 hours. Would you like to do a revenue share, blah, blah, blah. I liked the idea of Google paying me for the rest of my life, which made me very happy. And I had a revenue share agreement with Google, and I also have a revenue share agreement with my son, because he was in there as well. And it was just insane, you know what I mean? We got 400,000 views in about 4 or 5 months. It was awful. I mean, I wish I could show it, but I don't want to show it to you. And then it went a bit crazy a few months after that, because we went viral in Africa. We were viral in Gambia and Gabon, and that was another 400,000 views. It ended up with about 1 million views. So there's a kind of whole industry that's out of games that's been lost to the providers of this content. And that's where I think that chat-based games are really, really important. All of these platforms need another form of regular engagement. I believe there's a company in the Middle East, North Africa, called Palringo, which is one of the pioneers of this genre. And Palringo was the default messaging platform in various territories or countries within the Arab Spring. Now, if you want to be a games company and then try and create an engagement platform, it's going to take you a lot of time. If you've got a messaging platform and then you add games to that roster where people can play the equivalent of an SMS game 15 years ago, or like Snake or something like that, you get people to engage across the platform and then maybe go in to try out some published games as well. And, you know, Clash of Clans, Angry Birds, the engagement, the people love this stuff, you know. And if the brands aren't going to keep that closer.
The problem that you're describing is in fact the problem of every single app, how to engage more with the user and create communities around them. And as I hear you, you're saying that messaging apps are very well positioned to develop broader than messaging, as opposed to video platform becoming messaging apps.
I think every app should have a chat-based platform.
Every app should have a chat-based platform. Well, Hasan, that brings me to you, because if every app has a chat-based platform, and in Web 3.0, the keyword is really relevance. They know your location, they know what you're doing before, what you will be doing next, what your peers are doing. And my good friend Simon Hala from Fleury told me that every day they treat 3 trillion analytics events on the Fleury platform related to mobile. So where is data analytics going on in Web 3.0?
Perfect. Basically, in the past few years, a new approach to discover data and information is helping a lot in decision making. Although predictive analytics is something that is in its early stages right now, we in Arzan VC believe strongly that it can go beyond the limitations of human thinking, and I mean we will be able to understand and process big data in real time. In addition to that, basically we will not. I mean, it will not. The vast amount of information and the different structure this information is put in, and the quality also will not affect us and how we can read the data. So, in the consumer's world, data analytics will be a part of our daily lives, and especially through the artificial personal assistants, such as Apple Siri and Google Now. That said, these applications will use semantics and natural language processing to be able to mine into our calendars, into our emails, our blogs, even our conversations, to recommend a specific action for us in to be able to manage our daily lives. So it can tell you, read this book. It can tell you your diet today should be X or Y or Z, or go to that movie. So in a way, this is something that is going to be used daily with us in all of the applications. And all of these applications are mobile at the end. So in a way, analytics or the predictive analytics is solving 3 main challenges we are facing today in our market. One, as an individual, you're becoming more efficient in performing daily tasks. 2, in businesses, basically, you will be able to target high potential customers in a more efficient way too. And lastly, most importantly, your decisions will be based on a large amount of data, but in a very, very short time. You can decide on something. So one application that would be used, and this is something that is very interesting, how governments can use analytics to make their citizens' life much better. So as an example, I'll take Dubai's government and how they're adopting the smart government strategy. And an example is basically Smart Drive, which is a navigation application. It's currently competing against Google Maps. I mean, okay, so it gathers live data from all of the cameras that are on the road, and the government uses this not only to give the features that are already there in Google Maps, but to improve the safety of drivers in the roads. In our region, there's a lot of accidents, and that's where governments come in to improve the lives of citizens. VCs, as a VC, I mean, a lot of VCs in the Silicon Valley right now, they're using a lot of analytics from earlier startups that was taken many years back to develop a model to be able to predict what is the best, what are the chances for a new startup to be successful. So and I think all of these analytics are being monetized, so you need to have some value to be able to continue on that.
Yeah, so I just realized I forgot to introduce you, just because you have a normal background, being an entrepreneur and coming from private equity.
No Bollywood.
So yeah, no Bollywood, no nothing, so I forgot, sorry. So Hasan Zainal is a partner. He founded a venture capital firm, the first venture capital firm out of Kuwait, Arzan Ventures. And just to build on what you were saying, it seems that the power is a bit shifting in terms of demand, because you were just saying that they have relevant information regarding where you are. So local is very important in a mobile world. They have all your preferences. We'll talk about the they, who they are a bit further on. But this brings me to Fadi. Fadi, the founder of BlackBox in Silicon Valley. Fadi, is the economic model shifting from a push model to a pull model where I can custom order whatever I want? I want a black car at a very specific geographic point at time T, and I use Uber. How is this data analytics, real-time data analytics, shifting the economic model of Web 3.0?
Yeah, so it's shifting in many ways with all of these devices as well. I mean, just the connected cars and the data that's coming from our engagement in the social media or in the games that we're playing or how we're consuming the news. It is really changing everything because the amount of information is significantly increasing exponentially, and the old model of the services being pushed via advertisement and in television or cinema or other places is changing to more of people getting the kind of services that they need at the time they need them, from the Uber and the delivery and all of these services. And of course, you get custom the car that you want and with everything that you want in it, the kind of sensors that you want, the technologies. And so this change, because it's what's happened with the web is it's become really like the invention of electricity, if you would. And it's really a lot more significant than that, if you think about it. It allows for knowledge and information to be transferred everywhere. So we have devices communicating with each other. We have people communicating with each other and performing anything and learning and exchange of knowledge. And now the internet exists. It's just like we don't pay attention to electricity. It's in here, but we're happy. There's a nice light bulb, makes beautiful light, and there is
This is what Eric Schmidt in the Google call said, the internet is over. Just saying, because it's like electricity. It's everywhere today.
It's
so
absolutely
now
right.
Let's stop talking about it. It's over.
So it's over. The internet is over. And what we have right now is the new appliances. Is like the industrial revolution, but now it's the miniaturized industrial revolution. It's all these devices, and with the intelligence and the knowledge and the analytics and the way that we could interpret this information and customize it and allow it to give us, to feed back into us and our actions and tell us to do certain things. And this is changing the whole relationships between the consumers and the market. So it's putting the consumer more in control, in the driver's seat. So
the consumer in the driver's seat, a pull model, I want something very specific to me, very relevant to me. And so how do I pay for that? In the US, messaging platforms have become payment platforms. Snapchat and yesterday Facebook added just payment on Messenger. In China, WeChat is distributing everything from virtual goods to phones through their platform. When do you expect messaging platforms to become leading financial institutions? So this question to you, and Monty, you're next answering that. So
yeah. So first, starting with the ability for the consumer, the trust to give Uber their credit card numbers and be saying, okay, keep that open. Moving into that level of trust that we could do business with big companies right now, and not big companies, a company that just started yesterday, we say, okay, here's my credit card information, and when I need to order grocery, deliver it to me and take it out of my card. So this is one of the things that kind of started this entire thing. Now, with the banking is the credit cards are the bank, and they're taking big cuts, and that needs to be washed out of the way, and many companies dealing with it differently. And iTunes is one of these companies. Apple's with iTunes, they service so many different products through their platform, payment platform. And the ability to have this exchange of payments, going from the old PayPal paying each other's with email into something is happening in the background. The level of trust that happened, that everything is traceable and everything is transparent, and the credibility of the consumers now could be determined, even credit-worthy could be determined much more accurately from their just quick look at their social media. So it's just making this money information and the transaction a lot more smoother, and it's probably one more step to more of this digital currency that we rarely see the money. I mean, with the plastic and credit cards and digital amounts, and we're moving towards more and more of that towards the cryptocurrency and bitcoins and all of that, decentralizing all of that. So,
but let's focus again on messaging being a bank.
Well, okay, so I think it's pretty clear that the acquisition of Snapchat by Facebook seemed like a huge amount of money, right? 19 billion.
WhatsApp, yeah.
Yeah.
the microphone up.
Yeah, sorry. So, but a 10% rise in Facebook share price pays for it straight away, right? Alibaba this week announced more investment in the same platform, and everyone's going to pay with this.
Ali coins. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Alibaba has their own currency as well.
Yeah. So, who's going to lead the way, or how's it going to be done? If you want to keep your gamers engaged, you want to keep the people that pay for the gamers engaged, and that'll be a money platform. And is it going to come from Silicon Valley, or is it going to come from somewhere like Kenya, where the M-Pesa mobile money platform now accounts for 42% of the country's gross domestic product? That's 42%, and that's going up, it seems like 7 or 8% every year. So that these platforms are here to stay, and where they come from or how they're paid for, I'm not sure if I'd want to put money through Facebook. I'm not sure if I would. Maybe I would, maybe I wouldn't. But I know how I got to Beirut. I came with a credit card and I changed up some cash to pay the taxi driver and get a visa. But interestingly, there was something I saw was quite weird at Istanbul airport when I was waiting for my flight to Beirut. There was get rid of your Turkish lira, and you could put your money into a slot, into a machine, and there are about 8 or 9 providers that could transfer that, I don't know, $5 worth of Turkish lira into a Costa Coffee card, into all these other forms of currencies. Again, with M-Pesa, they're one of the few mobile platform companies in the world that a month ago allowed Bitcoin to be part of that platform as well. So, I think it's an absolute revolution. I don't know who's going to win, but I've got a feeling that it won't be the people you suspect that will win.
Well, talking about revolution, my very same Simon Khalaf of Fleury said this year is the year of M-commerce. Why is that? In the US? Why is it the year of M-commerce? I mean, we've been doing e-commerce for years. What is the turning point that has happened this year for it to be the year of M-commerce? Maybe Hasan, and then...
Perfect. I think it's not only in the US, it's all around the world. Now, let me start with a few numbers before I go into why do I think M-commerce it's the time for M-commerce. 51%, there's a mobile penetration of 51%. There is a mobile connection penetration of approximately 200%, which means every individual would have two subscriptions. And most importantly, the web traffic that is coming from mobile, in 2010 it was 3%, and 2014 it's around 30%. So we look at this tremendous growth, and then we can say, yes, M-commerce is the next move for any online business. Now, that said, I really think e-commerce would be affected. So they would need to, any company that is focused on e-commerce would need to, in a way, focus to shift to a mobile, well-designed mobile app that can suit all of the devices and all of the operating systems. In addition to that, I mean, as you just mentioned, WeChat and Instagram, I'll give you a local example, let me put it this way. So in Kuwait and even Saudi, I've seen a lot of entrepreneurs with home businesses that started through Instagram, okay, and they sold their products and services through Instagram, and they still don't have a website. And the funny part is all of these home businesses, or a lot of them, are worth millions. So that's how mobile commerce is very strong. Now, in a way, I think it's improving convenience. For a consumer, you will be able to get a product or a service that is relevant to what you want, okay? Relevant to your location, relevant to your demography. From a service provider perspective, you will have the power of notification and recommending specific products to customers that are just beside your store. So all of these, I mean, that's why I think it's the time of mobile commerce.
With the millions of apps developing, temptation for the user is to multitask, be on one and being on the other at the same time, drive and listen to something and play with his phone or his car or any other connected device. And that makes voice very relevant because you can listen to voice and use your eyes for something else. So in the Web 3.0 is earballs or a pair of ears worth as much as eyeballs. What's your view on audio? Well,
I think audio is an interesting trend. I just want to pick up on, I want to say both ends of the panel here. On payments, don't overlook Venmo in terms of a payment platform. That one, in particularly for millennials, and a behavior pattern where they are willing to put banking account information on an app and transfer money between bank accounts, which is a completely different behavior than being comfortable with putting your credit card. Whether it's e-commerce or m-commerce, can we just drop the E or the M? At this point, it's commerce, and I think consumers use multiple platforms and devices in a much more sophisticated way with shopping.
The internet was over, now mobile is over.
I want to say,
right?
So e-commerce is over, m-commerce is over, it's commerce. What interests me with respect to audio is two particular things that have happened in the US. One is a program called Serial, and this came out last year. It's part of NPR, This American Life. And this was nonfiction podcast that ultimately ended up with 68 million downloads. And this is like, I want to say, the golden era of radio, where you had a serialized story that unfolded over multiple episodes. So I think that deep storytelling and that in-depth into story, which I think plays into numerous themes we're seeing across, the internet, and the fact that it had 68 million downloads, and this was this obsession of whether or not you had gotten into this early, and the social aspect of it, sharing this experience with friends. And then there's a company called Detour, which founded by one of Groupon's founders. And this, again, is a serialized way to experience a city and a neighborhood. And they've released one for South by Southwest, where you did, in essence, a walking tour of the city, but it was done not here, turn at this block, but they did it based around an historical event in the 1800s and had a way for you to experience the city, and again, audio. And I think these are interesting to me because I think it plays into our desire to get our faces out of our phones, to be connected but disconnected, and to
desire to get our faces out of the phone. I like that. Especially for teenagers, it's very, very relevant. They just don't want to be appearing on Facebook, on
right,
Insta.
Enough of the, but we want to experience things, and we want, and sort of like the touch and the reality of things again. But how can we experience it? And this depth of storytelling that is in it, I think, is what is making it compelling at this time.
Okay, so voice, and there's a very big topic, I'm surprised, that we have not talked about yet. And at the Mobile World Congress Simon Segars, the CEO of ARM, was saying that the what? The Apple Watch is going to give a push to wearables. So wearables, is that the next mobile? So many mobile devices everywhere. What is the expanded definition of mobile now is wearable. So what is the future in that? How do you see wearables, Fadi?
So wearables, they ranging from the basic Fitbit, just tracking, and the apps that they're built in phones, and now the watch that has, I don't know, 10 sensors or something like that. So the iWatch is definitely going to be connecting that. It's almost the thought of like you have the computer used to be under the desk, and you connect stuff to it. Now it's a piece of something in your pocket or your purse, and then all these devices that they're connecting if they need to and accessing the clouds and all the massive computations happening in the clouds to give a lot of intelligence. So wearables is also the Internet of Things, whatever, it's all of these things coming together in the same frame. Just on the mentioning something about the voice, there is something also on the interface with the machine via voice. Siri is very, very small version of what really Siri is. And the founder, Adam Scher, who I've seen him talk, he came to our program many times, and what he's working on right now, the next thing is what I would call the Web 4.0 maybe, which is this platform that's going to connect all these devices together intelligently, and the ability for anybody to also customize different services and applications from not just to watch, from also the piece of all the sensors in the car, or all the sensors in the environment on the roads, and all of these pieces going to communicate together in a way that facilitates smoother and easier way that we should live our lives.
Maybe Monty on wearables?
Don't wear a watch. My son dropped it out of a window about 10 years ago, and they'll pay for it on his 21st birthday. I'm not so sure about it. I get a bit creeped out by stuff that is monitoring me all the time. I'd never buy an Apple Watch. I don't see the point of it. I understand that we're all going to be connected and there'll be a matrix.
Who would buy an Apple Watch here? Not many hands up.
Well, this is
the $17,000 watch. Who would buy that?
The thing here is really we were creeped out by the fact that we could also share our personal information or the bank information. These things are not necessarily for our generation, maybe. The new generation, they want this possibilities that
but
providing this
experience.
experience.
New generation here, Hasan. New generation. What's your view on this?
I personally think I would buy one for one reason. You can use it for many things. Even for the older generation, I think if I want to buy one, I would buy it for my father or grandfather, just to monitor his health in the future and to make sure that everything is okay. So there's a lot of uses for wearables, and
so I want to pick up on what you said. I think because you're picking up in terms of the data, I think when some of these devices will give us all of our small data across multiple channels, I think that'll be an amazing day. As for wearables, for me, who still wears a watch, until wearables for me are invisible, they still feel awkward, clumsy, something separate. They're until the day that they are seamless. There's one wearable that is glasses that enable the color correct for people who are colorblind. That to me is a seamless wearable device as opposed to a Google Glass or a Fitbit or some ugly, rubber bracelet. I'm just not going to do it.
Okay, seamless wearable devices. We have a few wearable innovations from this region, and one of them actually, Hendah Beya from Instabit does goggles. They're not seamless yet, they're quite visible, but maybe the new designs will be. This brings me, because I don't want to have a panel like this come to this region without having your impressions about the region. And funnily enough, and I always pick up on you, Monty, for funny stuff, I was on your blog yesterday and I came up with a poem that you wrote not so long ago.
Did it really?
Yes, and the poem says, I obviously should be dead with the risks and rides, margin so fine, but I never thought the rules applied to me. And I think, why did I think this is relevant? Because I think this is very relevant to the entrepreneurs in this room and the entrepreneurs in Beirut. I obviously should be dead with the risks and rides, margin so fine, I never thought the rules applied to me. So entrepreneurs, if you're still alive after all this, please come and apply to Leap Ventures. But also, you know, what is your impression after a few days in Beirut and in the Arab region? I know you've traveled to the riskiest place on earth, going to Nigeria, going to Nairobi, to Lagos. Well, how is Beirut? How does Beirut compare? And can innovation in mobile come from this region or in wearables?
Right, so two stories. One is that I was in Beirut about 18 years ago. I wanted to become a journalist, and there was an advert in an English newspaper said, I don't know if the paper still exists, called the Daily Star.
It does.
So it was like an expat banking newspaper. So I tried to, you know, accelerate my career, do a year in Beirut. I met this guy. There were checkpoints everywhere. It was a pretty scary place. But at that time, people were using mobile phones more than they were in London because of the infrastructure had been bombed and ruined, you know what I mean? So you see this type of innovation sometimes out of tragedy and stuff like that. I was in Somaliland near Ethiopia about 4 years ago. I had to hire a soldier to get through this unrecognised but amazing country, democratic country. And I was trying to get him to shoot his gun to prove to me that the gun worked, and it looked like it was 100 years old. And we ended up in some caves that should have been a United Nations heritage site. All I could see were about 3 goats. And I was going, shoot your gun, man, shoot your gun. And he wouldn't do it. But then his phone went off, right? And the song that was playing was like amazing records, you know, like Mississippi blues, but it was Ethiopian blues. And I said, what's that? And the first thing he said was, well, do you want me to Bluetooth it to you? So I'm in the oldest caves in the world, in allegedly a country that doesn't exist. So it doesn't matter so much about the danger. Well, I think that Africa's the future. I think MENA, Middle East, North Africa is the future. And the stuff that will come out of Sub-Saharan Africa especially, and this area, will be completely different to what we're expecting.
Okay,
and it's
so
an
I'll turn that
opportunity.
into MENA is the future.
Yeah, you do that.
Okay. And so technology adoption, okay, great in the region, but what about innovation in the region? Hasan, do you think we can innovate mobile, innovate Web 3.0 out of the region and out of Beirut, of all places?
I think a few years back, whenever I meet an entrepreneur, one main thing, when I ask them about their strategy, they say a lot of the VCs that we meet, they do advise us to stick with the MENA region and the MENA region only, and to try to replicate the successful stories in the Western countries into the MENA. And I basically don't agree with them. I think this is just killing the innovation that any entrepreneur has. So although the market is small, however, we can see a very fast-paced development and the opportunities are emerging. So for us, for me personally, I always like to say that creativity and innovation does not have a citizenship, and there's no one place for you to be able to be creative. It's our role as an ecosystem to provide the support and the resources for all of our entrepreneurs to achieve what they want to achieve. And this is what we're doing in Arzan VC. Basically, we're trying to have an international portfolio, investing into international firms to be able to connect the international brains to the local, and in a way, I mean, so that they can learn from each other and understand the different culture sensitivities.
So while Kelly maybe answers this, if there are some dying questions from the audience, because we only have a few minutes left, so if you want to ask this panel anything about mobile, yeah, your view, was it your first time in Beirut?
This is.
Okay, so impressions, can we innovate from here?
Absolutely. I think picking up on Hasan, I think it's the infrastructure and the ecosystem support and always making sure that you're putting the entrepreneur at the center of that ecosystem. And that everything that is designed, whether it's academic, government, corporate, goes back to what is it that the entrepreneur needs. What I would also say about this region, where you have a tremendous advantage, is the level of education and advanced degrees, particularly in engineering, which are held by women. And that is a massive, massive advantage that this region should take hold of. It's hard enough as it is in the United States, where I now live, Canada, where I'm from. We have a talent shortage of a tsunami level about to hit us because we cannot produce enough engineers, let alone women who are in IT, computer science, any of the STEM degrees. And the fact that there is a majority in parts of this region of STEM degrees that are going to women is something that the region should capitalize on.
Okay, we have a question here.
Well, my name is Dr. Rustam. I'm the chairman of the IT and Internet Association of Lebanon, and I'm the president of CL Global Sign and Global Sign Lebanon, and I'm the president of Commercial and Industrial Enterprises of Lebanon. Now, I would like to thank the gentlemen and the ladies giving us their views and expectations of what's happening in the world, in the foreseen world. But I'm quite surprised. Actually, they're talking about what you call the Internet of Everything. And I'm surprised that no one of them has ever mentioned the word of security. And Internet without security don't go. I mean, there's something wrong here, regardless of whatever they're planning. Of course, we are arriving to the Internet of Everything, or machine to machine. But please,
yes.
Method of payment, like you mentioned, for example, would you ever trust your credit card to any mini market or supermarket in the whole world, in any place in the world?
Very, very important question. Security.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. Security is very, very important. However, we're definitely not in a place we're jeopardizing. So, answer your question, I would absolutely trust my credit card, and I have, because I trust in the bank that will stop the transaction if they went out of the normal use I have. So there's a lot more intelligence that is also implied and added, and context being built to provide this security. So one more thing just about the region that I thought really, really interesting. I travel a lot. I've been to more than 40 countries and I work with a lot of entrepreneurs. And I think, and I haven't been, I'm originally from Syria, but I haven't been to Beirut since I was 7-year-old. This is like about 80 years ago. And I see a tremendous, great opportunity, I think, for the various reasons. I just want to emphasize again from what Hasan and Kelly have mentioned, the education, that we have the English language speaking. There is definitely infrastructure support. It's not as sophisticated. It's constantly evolving, and it is global market. And I think this is really key point that Hasan made that I want to emphasize here, is just like Monty mentioned, there was this game that took off in Africa. They took off randomly. We're living in a global economy and a digit economy, and we don't have any control where the value that we create could be consumed. And I think it serves the Lebanese and the Middle Eastern entrepreneurs to be viewing the world as their market and understanding the needs from a broader sense than just to create this small business that could survive. That's great in itself as well, but it's also to have that global perspective and building for that. I think it's valuable.
And I'd just reply to the gentleman as well. Humanity, security is boring. You know, it's really important. But if you're talking about the Internet of Everything and smart cities and sensors and mobile 3.0 or the end of the Internet or the end of mobile, these are the things that perpetuate that thing. So I think it's very, very important that you raise that point.
Okay, so security is a utility. It is boring, it's essential, We need to have it. We'll end on that positive note that you all have.
But also, I mean, security ties in with privacy. And our whole notion on privacy and how and when we give away information, you know, that also is nuanced and complex and situational. When do we prepare to give it away and give away our privacy and risk our security? And when do we say, no, it's not going to happen? So for some people, it's bank account information, and others, it's pictures of their children. You know, it's also individual.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Fadi. Thank you, Hasan. Thank you, Monty. Please engage with the panelists after the panel. Thank you for listening, and see you soon.
Thank you, Hala.
Thank you.